what is the worst EDH deck possible? How can I lose every single game no matter what? So let's just, go through the cycles, right? So the first thing that came to my head, and I'm sure came into your head also, is just instantly scoop every single game. So yes, this works. You are most likely to lose, and this is objectively the best thing. But that's a little cheap. So there's a couple issues with this. First of all, I don't necessarily know if that's the parameter we want to use for worst, right? Do we want to use us losing as the parameter for worst? Well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. But if we do, then we can just scoop instantly, but then that's a little cheap. So what's the next step? Well, the next logical step is, okay, so you're saying just scooping, just giving up on the game isn't really a great solution. Well, then let's just, pay all our life and then scoop virtually by just killing ourselves with our cards. Well, I don't know. I mean, that seems fine, but it's just not that great. So let's pivot. Let's go something completely different. What if we say we want to have genuine group hug, right? Like a deck that all it does is helps your opponents. It doesn't do anything for you. Well, it might also do anything for you, but there's no way you're ever going to win with this. You don't have any creatures. You don't have anything at all that could do damage or do harm to your opponents at all. The only thing you can possibly do is help your opponents. And this works because you're having, and for this, the parameter that makes this the best option is having the most effect on the game that is detrimental to you. But there's a whole lot of that is beneficial to your opponents. But, that becomes a little interesting. So first of all, you could build a detrimental cards only deck. So this is a deck that every single card you play is only going to harm yourself and do nothing beneficial for yourself at all. Well, that could work. I mean, you don't get to do everything you do is just going to hurt yourself, but that's, that could work, and that would be the biggest impact on the game you can have that is detrimental to yourself. But what if we think the biggest impact on the game that is good for your opponents in a different way, right? We say we want a Kingmaker deck. So how this would work is we're going to choose one player, right? So if we want to have someone else win the game as quickly as possible, we are going to have to make the most powerful card deck in Magic, but with some slight alterations depending on the exact guidelines. The goal is to kill two of the opponents and then scoop, right? Or kill yourself, depending on if we allow scooping, or just do nothing after that, whatever it might be. Any of these things could go after the winning part, but the idea is you kill two players and then you die, right? You let the other person kill you, whatever it is, that is you having someone else win as quickly as possible. That's a way to get around at least the scoop thing, because you're not just going to do it instantly, you have to kill two people first. So what if we say, no, we don't want an impact on the game. We want to figure out how we can have the least impact on the game. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but they all boil down to you're never going to cast a spell. So either you play no lands. So this is, the best way to do it, because you also play nothing that is free to cast, just as a caveat. This is the best way to do it because you're never going to do anything at all. Literally nothing. You're just sitting there drawing cards and discarding. You don't get to do a single thing. The next is, well, you know what? You want lands, so you're not going to play any spells. So that could work, but with those lands, you have to be careful and make sure there's no activated or triggered abilities or anything that could give you benefit, because that wouldn't be any good. You'd have an effect on the game. That would be terrible. All right, so that could work. like it could work. All right, and the next possibility is improper fixing. So I don't mean actual improper fixing. In normal Commander, applications, I guess, in normal Commander applications, improper fixing is like, I'm not likely to get the colors that I need to play a card. In this improper fixing, I mean, with the mana sources in my deck, it is not possible to play a single card in my deck. Every single card in my deck will not be possible to play with the fixing I have, even if I get to curate my hand. So all these things boil down to around the same thing, and you're never going to cast a spell. There's a million different ways you could also do this, but And then there's a thing you could do. You could try, okay, I can cast spells, but I can't actually cast any spells that do anything for me. For example, if I had a deck full of ramp cards, then, that would be a way that I could just ramp myself over and over and over again, but I wouldn't cast anything off of the ramp. Okay, so what's the next notable thing is, what about your commander? You have to have a commander that you can't, that doesn't conflict with your deck. So maybe the biggest issue is your commander is a creature. And the issue with that is creatures can technically do damage to your opponents. Now, it all depends on how you guide these, right? Are you talking about exactly the worst deck possible where someone else would try and play it? I think that's one of the best ways to put this into perspective. So I'd put it that way, but I could put it other ways too. So if you're saying, okay, you build the worst deck, someone else has to play it, basically, then you're not going to want to be able to cast your commander. Or you're going to want to get a commander that sacrifices itself or kills you on enter the battlefield. So something like that just isn't gonna isn't gonna help you at all, because you do not want to have a creature that someone could potentially win with. Why would you do that? That's terrible. That destroys the entire purpose. The goal is to make it 100% impossible for you to win. So, I guess not you. So another good thing about someone else playing it is it removes scoop instantly. It removes a lot of these things that just feel a little cheap, or the drain all your life instantly, or try and mill yourself to death. It just makes it a little bit, it removes some of these options. So, I mean, that's really it, those are the ideas. So what's the best way you're going to do this? As I said before, it all depends on the situation. So the first thing you have to identify is, are you playing it or is someone else playing it? Now, if you're playing with it, then, that just basically means everything is free. But if you're not playing with it, someone else is playing with it, I don't think this is very common because, why would you do that? Is this going to be a tournament or something? This is really difficult. This is sort of like Commander. Like, Commander is inherently broken, this is inherently broken. There's not really any proper way to do this. So, maybe it's a tournament, whatever. That seems like a terrible idea because it would last forever depending on how you do it. So, if you're running it versus if someone else is running it, it's a little different, but we're going to assume that you are running it. So, if you're running it, we're going to assume you want to actually play the game, because why are you there, right? This is a joke, but you still want to be there. You don't want to just leave. So you're not just going to scoop instantly or try to kill yourself or try to mill yourself, unless milling yourself takes a lot of work, which it generally does. So milling yourself could work. So a slow way to kill yourself, but that just seems inefficient given the guidelines. So you have to choose. What do you want? How do you define the worst? Do you want to give as much benefit as possible to your opponents? Go with group hug. 100% genuine. Remember that. And make sure that there are no creatures, because creatures can attack in any of these things. Creatures are bad. And it doesn't really matter if you're losing a little bit of value or efficiency in some of these cards because no creatures. Because you don't care. You're trying to lose. All right. So then we have, versions of killing yourself we don't really want. And then not being able to cast anything. I don't like that option too much because, sure, technically you can't do anything to yourself, do anything at all, but it just doesn't seem fun. Sure, technically you're playing, but really you're not getting to do anything. So, any version of not being able to cast anything or activate any abilities on lands or something like that. So, if you're playing by yourself, you're playing your own deck, and you want to have a decent game, then it kind of boils down to two options. 100% genuine group hug, so you're trying to help everyone else as much as possible. Three options. Detrimental cards only, where you're trying to hurt yourself as much as possible. And a CEDH deck. A deck that is going to kill two people as quickly as possible and then is going to scoop or kill itself instantly some other way. So those are the options, and it's up to you. What do you want? The CEDH deck has the downside of being extremely expensive, which is really bad for a joke deck. You don't want to be spending a ton of money on a deck you're not going to play very much. And the other ones, they all have their upsides and downsides. Detrimental cards only could be considered less fun or more fun. It is really up to you. So you just have to choose, which of these options is best for you. What is your guidelines? How do you want to do it? All right. Well, thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.